7 o'clock. It's 7 o'clock. Planning Commission meeting for Tuesday, April 15th will come to order. Roll call, please.
Tom Hausen, present.
Alan Hickey, present.
Tushar Desai, present.
Lou Yang, present.
Scott Walshleger, present. John Eads, present.
All right, thank you. We are going to go to the approval of the agenda. Any members have any corrections or changes that they wish to see? None? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So, move.
Alan moved, second?
Second.
Second. All those in approval of moving the agenda forward, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No nays. Motion passes. We will go to the approval of the minutes. Members, again, any changes, differences that need to be addressed? Okay. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Motion to approve the meetings.
So we need a second.
Second.
Yeah, second. All those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, say aye. Aye. There are no noes. The minutes have passed. We shall move on to the public hearing. St. Paul Police Training Facility, 2621 Linwood Avenue East. Elizabeth, an update on it, please.
Yes. Good evening, Chair and Commission. If I can get the PowerPoint here up. Perfect. Tonight we have the St. Paul Police Department proposing to update their existing training facility at 2621 Linwood Avenue. The 37-acre site in south parcel in the former golf course. Ramsey County owns the property and has leased a portion to the city of St. Paul since at least the mid-60s. To move forward with this proposal, the applicant is requesting approval of a conditional use permit, design plans, and a wetland buffer variance. Future land use designation, park, zoning district, farm residential. City code requires a conditional use permit for public land uses in all zoning districts. When the St. Paul PD began leasing this site from Ramsey County, a conditional use permit was not required or obtained at that time. The use of the property is not changing. The proposal to rebuild the classroom facility prompted the CUP requirement to comply with current city regulations. So the use is already established on this site. The proposed plans replace the classroom training facility and include accessibility and safety upgrades. The building is just over 3,000 square feet in the southwest section of the site and adjacent to the existing building, which will be demolished. Access from the south is off Linwood Avenue, and the project includes a classroom, 2 armories, men's and women's locker rooms, kitchenette, break room, and ADA compliant restrooms. The site has 2 manage A wetlands on either side of the proposed building and parking area, and those wetlands require a 100-foot buffer. The site was originally developed and graded prior to the city's wetland ordinance and buffer requirements. So currently there are no mitigation or standards in place in relation to the wetland and how the site's being used. The drive lane, tactical training and building, storage buildings and gravel pad areas all extend into that 100-foot wetland buffer today and are considered pre-existing non-conforming structures and encroachments into that buffer. The project that they're proposing tonight, rebuilding that classroom facility, will encroach within that 100-foot buffer, requiring a 41-foot wetland buffer variance. The wetland buffer can also be averaged through our ordinance. There's some mitigation and averaging that can occur, certain standards that apply, and that's detailed further in the environmental review report. So this project will have some grading within approximately 53 feet of the eastern wetland for the extension of their utility line, a parking stall, and the septic system. The grading will come to within approximately 59 feet of the western wetland for building the earthwork related to that. And the details, again, are in that variance narrative and the wetland delineation in the staff report. Here is an aerial view of the site that was submitted along with the wetland buffer variance, and it shows kind of the existing situation on the site right now. You can see the existing building that they're talking about demolishing in the area where there's some class 5 and some paving, and showing the existing wetland buffer edge and some of the other smaller outbuilding canopied areas that they use for their training. The wetlands are shown as well on here. This is the proposed building and septic and well areas shown, and the parking areas. The limits of construction are shown, the dashed line that goes around the proposal. That is where we're measuring when in the environmental review, when we're looking at the setback to the 100 feet and the 75 feet. I would reference the averaging that can occur as part of that buffer requirement, where certain areas can be as close as 75 feet, certain areas can be as close, or you know, as long as it's an average. The existing facility utilizes well and septic infrastructure, which will be replaced as part of this project, and that's just due to the age of their existing systems. The building and parking are entirely screened within that existing landscaping that's on the site. They're set back 201 feet from the property line to the south along Linwood Avenue, and 84 feet to the property line to the west. So again, screened from the public streets and residential areas, the required building and parking setbacks are achieved. And one note, because I know this was brought up at the previous meeting, and maybe the design team or PD can speak more to it later, but the existing facility utilizes that well and septic infrastructure. You know, they would be open to connecting to city water. However, there isn't city water in that area as of right now. Should there be a residential development in the future on the rest of this site, there would be water brought in on Linwood Avenue. But at this time, there isn't a formal proposal for that before us. We're not reviewing that here at the city, so we can talk more about that later. But the landscape plan shows 18 trees that would be removed, along with some buckthorn, and they would be replacing 18 trees. All other tree coverage on the site is remaining to provide that visual and acoustic screening of the building and exterior training areas. The applicant will need to submit an updated landscape plan and work with our environmental staff on a wetland mitigation plan and native plantings. Right now, I mentioned this earlier, the site currently has no mitigation or in place in relation to those wetlands, so they will be working closely with them going forward should this project proceed. The one-story building varies in height between 12.5 and 19 feet as the grade changes. Materials, insulated CMU blocks. I won't get too much into this. The design board did review these items earlier this evening. The building is not visible from the adjacent streets overall. Here are some elevation perspectives and site renderings to get a sense of what it would look like here. For the public review process, staff sent a public hearing notice to properties within 500 feet as required. We did not receive comments prior to the preparation of the staff report that was sent to you last week. However, over the weekend, I did receive an email from a resident. The email that I received had questions regarding the ownership of this site and whether or not a residential development was occurring there. There seemed to be a confusion of whether or not that project was proceeding or not proceeding, and this was instead happening there. So that was that. Other than that email, the city had not received comments prior to this evening regarding the project. The staff review comments are included in the staff report as well. There are some items from fire, building, environmental, and engineering that are outlined in that report and in their review comments. The city review process. So tonight, the CDRB, our design board, looked at the design plans and recommended approval of the project. The Planning Commission, tonight, we are looking at holding our public hearing and reviewing the conditional use permit and the wetland buffer variance requests. The Environmental and Natural Resources Commission is going to be reviewing that wetland buffer variance request. And on and that's on April 21st. And on May 12th, the City Council will review the conditional use permit, design plans, and the wetland buffer variance request and make the final decision on this project. With that, staff is recommending approval of the project and resolutions that were included in your report. I have those motions here for you to consider. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And I know we do have some representatives here from our the applicant side, their design side, architectural contact, and then St. Paul PD.
Okay. Any questions for the staff?
If I may ask, you said the existing building is grandfathered in, right?
For the, yes, sure. So we can talk about there's two different things here. So
Okay.
we've got the conditional use permit. So the use of the site, it's in operation, it exists, it has been in operation for a number of years, as we know. The city code does not explicitly prohibit this use. We do require a conditional use permit for any public building. So if they already had a conditional use permit and they were going to rebuild a building, they would be here tonight amending their conditional use permit. But they don't have one because there wasn't a conditional use permit obtained in the first place. There likely wasn't a requirement at that time, but since then, one was not obtained. And so now they are requesting to do these improvements for their training facility, which initiated the conditional use permit. This has happened before with some other sites throughout the city where we've maybe had a religious facility or a educational facility that didn't have a conditional use permit where they now need one. Not that it happens all the time, but it has happened. I know of a couple times. So that's where the conditional use permit requirement comes in. It's not a when it comes to the use. What I was talking about before is related to the existing conditions on the site in relation to that wetland and the required buffer that's on there. Those conditions are already there. And so they don't have a wetland buffer variance. If they were to propose something there, they would need to request a variance to those standards because there isn't one in place right now. So that is where that application requirement is coming from. At the end, if this variance is approved, they will be working with the environmental review team on making sure that there are some mitigation strategies in relation to that buffer and plantings, whereas right now there isn't any.
Okay. Okay.
What's the classification of the wetland?
It's a manage
A and
A, so it is a 100-foot minimum buffer. It can go down to 75 with averaging. Again, there are certain prescriptive standards in our wetland ordinance where this is allowed, and part of that being a mitigation plan. We also, that 100 feet, it's not to the building or the parking. The way we measure that in our ordinance, it's a little, it's my understanding, in comparison to the watershed district, a little more, it's more strict. Because we actually look at the site grading. So that's why I had pointed out the limits of construction on the plan showing where all the work will be occurring in relation to these proposed improvements. So what is the limits of construction to do those improvements, where all the grading will occur and any other earthwork. So those variance requests are to that line kind of going around the project.
Okay. Any other questions of the staff?
So they'll need to request a permit from the watershed as well?
Correct.
Any other questions? If not, I will open up the public hearing. If there is any representative from the St. Paul Police Training Facility that would like to come up. Could sign in, give your name, please.
Very well, I signed in from the previous meeting. Would you like me to sign in again?
I think it's okay.
Good evening, my name is Eric Hammer. I'm one of the commanders at the St. Paul Police Department. The training unit is the unit that I oversee, and the range that we're talking about here falls under my purview.
Is this a training for shooting as well?
Yes, it is established shooting range.
Okay. And it's been like that from day one, correct?
Correct, yes, since at least the mid-'60s, we've been using it as a shooting range.
Okay. Is there, I keep looking at that edge of the golf course there, coming up with all this housing development coming in. Is there something that you guys need to kind of consider as part of this renovation of the facility, or you feel it's safe enough that there should be no cause for concern?
So right now, we do have safety mitigations in place to ensure that no errant rounds go over the top of the range that we shoot on, the ranges that we shoot on. It is my understanding there is potentially a development that is going in there, and we've had some cursory conversations with that developer company regarding what safety mitigations may need to be taken in addition to what we currently have if they go ahead with that development there.
And I read in the summary that the well is contaminated or no longer workable. So is any study done that this well would, the next one that you put in there would be having adequate water coming out of there, or that's yet to be determined?
Do you know, Deb? I'm going to let her speak to that.
Good evening. Hi, Deb Brandwick with Ortel Architects. There has not been an additional test well drilled as of yet. From previous usage of the existing well, it is believed that they will be able to locate a new well that will be adequate for drinking water.
Any idea what happened to the existing one, that it's no longer usable?
I do not have any definitive information on that, other than it is very old, and there are likely some pipe deterioration.
Like most residential wells, I assume that it's by age, it's, wouldn't be. So
Yeah, I think-
any well right now would be based on code of what current engineering codes are.
Even if it was still adequate drinking water, it'd be of an age that it should be replaced by code.
And same with the septic system?
Septic system, correct, yes. The septic system has simply stopped working. They have closed off the bathrooms. Well, they've closed the whole building now, but prior to that, they closed the bathrooms and are utilizing porta potties when necessary on site.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the members here? None? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Sign in. I am Marlis Howells. I live in the Crestview Forest Association. We have complained for years about the gun range, okay? Now that improvements seem to be happening, we have some concerns about the wetlands. I don't think getting variances, and I bow to your knowledge about what's going on here, but from what we've been able to determine, no one has asked neighbors about what goes on in that gun range. We finally have gotten the automatic weapons out of there, They kept saying, well, there aren't any. But everybody knows automatic weapons have a very distinct sound, and they were definitely using them. If you're going to have development, I looked at Horton's plan. They're putting townhouses right up next to that gun range. And you're going to have probably, if you improve the site, you're going to have more of the police using that gun range. I think it's probably time that somebody figures out how to cancel the lease and move the training facility someplace else. I think you have a number of issues to deal with. Environmental is the big one. You have noise abatement, which is another one. We've complained for years about the noise. And I didn't know that we had to actually write an email, a formal complaint. I got this letter, and I thought, well, I'll just come to the meeting and talk. So that's it. Okay?
Marla, one quick question for you.
Sure.
On this map, I don't see where your homeowners' residences are. Where are they actually at?
We're on Deer Ridge. Okay, if you look where Deer Ridge is, I'm up at the top, sort of at the top of the hill.
Oh,
Up at
way,
the,
way
like,
up
Okay.
there. Way,
Just
way up there.
northwest of there.
Yeah.
I see way up there.
And, we definitely hear the noise,
I
okay?
don't doubt it.
I do hear it, yep. I can attest to that. I live nearby as well. I also hear it, so I
Okay.
can attest to
All
what you were
right.
saying, yep.
But
Okay.
I would seriously consider thinking about whether it's in the best interest of the city to have that gun range still there. You have a lot of homes on the other side of Linwood, in addition to our association, which is very close. So I'll just leave it in your hands to figure this out, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Staff, I'm just wondering, what was on this, what was there first? The gun range or the development?
Well, so here's my understanding of kind of the history of that area is the gun range has been operating there, and I'll maybe let the City of St. Paul Police Department confirm that, but my understanding is since at least the mid-'60s, potentially before. Obviously, the residential development in that area, came later. At one time, prior to this golf course being here, there was a farm there as well, related to the correctional facility to the north. So this area has seen significant growth and change in terms of residential development over the years. That is a fact. In terms of the site, it's, the use there is allowed. It's understandably, there may be some frustrations and things that, we can have a conversation about tonight as far as if there's things that the city can do in relation to the conditional use permit. At the end of the day, the city does not own that site. We don't have a stake in what's occurring there other than our land use application process, which in this case, they are going through that process just like any other applicant would be required to do, should they be, doing something like this, developing something in the city. So what I'm getting at is the county owns these properties. Ramsey County owns the properties. The City of St. Paul has a lease for that, a piece of the land from Ramsey County there, is my understanding, that south parcel. If there are concerns or desires on the part of the neighborhood to see something different occurring there, unfortunately, we don't have a say in that. That is something that needs to be taken up with the county. If there are concerns about that, they should be talking to Ramsey County.
To clarify this, so this commission is going to decide on the CUP, the permitting. So the city does have jurisdiction over the permitting of the business or of the or organization.
Right.
And
So-
the waterland setback. My third question is, has there been any documented safety incidences the city's aware of with this in the last 30 years? Any?
Right.
Based on what's been going on there?
I asked the question, and there isn't anything to our knowledge that has occurred in terms of safety. We do know there has, and then there certainly were about maybe 10 years or so ago, a lot of issues with noise
Right.
down there. Since then, it's my understanding, this was prior to my time being here at the city, so I'm kind of hearing about this. And the residents here and the folks that work at St. Paul PD can probably speak to it a little bit more. But since that time, they had implemented some mitigation there on the site to help buffer that sound, is my understanding of what's happened there. So,
Noise, yes, but my question is, there's been no documented police reports of anything of any injuries based on the building or the facility right now?
that is correct, at least as far as I know. We can certainly check with our police department to see if there is anything documented, but I have not heard or that has not been brought up.
Could we actually ask the applicant, Eric Hammer?
Yeah.
Is there any documented, I mean, we can find this out, is there any documented safety injury incidences from civilians or even, people at the facility?
I've been employed with the St. Paul Police Department for about 17 years, and in my time here, I am unaware of any documented injuries resulting from use of that range.
Thank you.
A question in regards to the hours of use and days of use per year, just give us a baseline of that.
So right now, we have an understanding that we operate that range from 7 a.m. until 5 p.m. However, live fire typically doesn't happen. The earliest live fire would happen would be 7:30 in the morning, but typically we start at 7. Staff would show up at 7, get ready for the day. 7:30, students would arrive. They'd do some safety briefs, get some instruction, and we try to plan for that live fire to take place as close to 8 o'clock as we can. And then we wouldn't be having any live fire take place after 4:30 p.m. This is strictly Monday through Friday. There are no weekends involved where we're operating that range.
So basically a stronger ordinance or pattern of use than construction does.
I'm sorry.
Basically yours is a narrower use than what is allowed in the city for construction to occur in the city. Which
Yeah,
is
that is
Monday through
correct.
Friday, which is not Monday through Friday, it's Monday through Saturday, and.
Yeah,
so-
that is correct. As a department, we've taken a stance in trying to be good neighbors and understanding the impact that the use of such a facility can have on the neighborhood. So we've restricted our use to strictly business days, Monday through Friday, no weekends.
I would argue this is very different from a construction zone, though, because this is a continuous construction zone that never ends at that point. So it's very different from a construction zone which has a set period of time that from start to finish, and then the project is done, and it is very different. So, but I understand what the point you were
well,
getting at.
then I'll
Is
go
the
back.
timeframe that it was allowed for
I'll-
construction is
I'll-
very different.
I'll phrase the question, is the shooting range used every day, Monday through Friday?
No, it is not. It is not used every single day, Monday through Friday. We also have an indoor range at our new training facility located in the city of St. Paul that has helped mitigate some of the use of the outdoor facility, but obviously there are benefits of being outside and shooting in environmental conditions that we make use of that outdoor range for. But to give an approximate number of times we're out there, it's hard to because it just depends on the training we're trying to achieve.
I just wanted to clarify that it's not a Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. continuous use, which is the basis of my question.
That is correct. It is not that case.
Okay, so when I'm seeing that the building is run down, it's not working very well, so let me ask the question, are you guys still shooting there at the present time or in the recent past, or has that process all kind of wound down because the building is no good, so you guys don't use the facility?
So we certainly don't use it as much as we used to, based on the conditions of the building. The building that we're talking about is the main office building that our staff would work out of, that houses the bathrooms and the armories and so on and so forth. So as a result, we haven't been using it as much as we had been in the past, but we still do use it. Our SWAT team goes out there, our K-9 team goes out there. There are some limited uses that we do use it, still continuing to this day. But if this is approved, we would look to, we would be out there a little more frequently again, like we used to be. We would get back to the kind of that normal pattern we had before the last year.
All right, any other questions for him? Nope, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You got it? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I have a separate question, I guess, for Elizabeth, in terms of, is there a way, do you have a definition for what's considered public building? Because you said the conditional use permit is necessary for a public building. And I guess, I understand that this is owned by City of St. Paul through the lease, land owned by Ramsey County, but it's clearly not a public building, and it's maybe a municipal building, or, you know, there's kind of some variance there of definitions of what the space could actually be considered. Calling it public makes it sound like the public is available to go out there, and that's clearly not the case, I guess. I just want to see if there's any kind of definition within our zoning code regarding that.
Good question. I can read the language here where it talks about that.
And we can come back then too, if it's.
Yeah, why don't you let me do that?
Yeah, why
If-
don't you
if-
look at it?
Yep.
Please give us your name, sign in, please.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I'm Jan Rydell, and I live at 2596 Linwood Avenue East, so I'm across the street. And I've talked to a couple of the neighbors next to me, and I'm sorry, but we all like the gun range. And the noise is not that significant. I wasn't there, you know, over 10 years ago when maybe it was higher. But we, you know, find that they're very thoughtful as far as the time of day when they're actively shooting. And yeah, we hear it, but it's really not a problem. And yeah, I don't think anybody tries to go into that area that doesn't belong there, because it's all fenced off. And the only other thing I would have is that if the development with the townhomes and all of that goes in, then it just seems logical that city water and sewer would come into the range. But
Absolutely.
I understand if that's not possible also.
So-
So, just opinion.
And I can't remember if this was, I can't remember what we talked about offline or not, but if there's a development with city water, the applicant is amenable to hooking up to city water if it's available. Is that what I believe we talked about?
That's correct. So when we posed the question, and it's outlined in the engineering review memo more so, but when we did pose that question to the City of St. Paul Police Department about, you know, have these conversations occurred at all? You know, at this time, the timing isn't lining up, the timeline. What it amounts to is, you know, we've got 2 different projects that are not the same, but
Right.
in proximity, adjacent to each other. And so if that development occurs and they resubmit their applications, right now they're going through an environmental review, and they'll be submitting, you know, their plans to the city, where there'll be a formal public review and meeting process. And if that happens and the project's approved, yes, they would submit, install that water on Linwood. That would be our preference too. But they, you know, don't have access to that currently.
So take from this is it's not a preference of well and septic. This is all they have available to them to do this project.
That's my understanding, yes.
True, except that as I'm interpreting it here, they're putting the money in to put a well and a septic tank because there's no other option today. But they're not committing and saying that when water and sewer is available, that they would hook it up, because I'm guessing it costs money to do all that work. And so would they want to do that or not at that point? Because they'd have to budget it and all that good stuff like any city would have to. So that's where I think they just stopped short and said, it's not available today, so we got to have a well and septic system.
But they're basing it on a project that's not even approved, so they.
Correct. So they're just not talking about it, they're just saying, hey, it's something down the road, we'll think about it and do what we
Down the
need
road,
to.
you're gonna wanna do city sewer and water versus upkeep of your septic.
Septic
Right,
and well,
right.
so, but that's not clearly defined as a commitment by the city of St. Paul, so that's what my interpretation was anyhow. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in the public hearing, please?
Chair and Commission, just real quick, while they're walking up, I'll just read from the conditional use section that the city may issue a conditional use permit for the following uses: public and private utilities, public service, or public building uses.
So that private comes in.
My name's Mark Ammon. I live in Hillwood, at the very end of Hillwood. Again, a lot of the neighbors that I've been talking to lately, we didn't know about writing in emails and whatnot. We were just, a lot of discussion about it. I've been down in that area since the late 90s, mid-90s, and we have never, ever been happy with that shooting range, raising our children there, having them used to gunfire. And now I'm hearing that we're gonna have increased gunfire once we get this thing up and running again. And then we're gonna put more townhomes right next to it. D.R. Horton has to turn around and put special windows in those townhomes because of the sound. I mean, is this really the direction that we as Maplewood want to take as having this facility? It's outgrown that area. Why is it now that only the St. Paul police are using it? Why isn't the FBI using it like they used to? Why isn't there other police out there shooting like they're used to? They have found other places, and St. Paul police should do the same. From all of my neighbors that I've talked to, I have not talked to one that is happy with that area, with that shooting range in that area. Not one. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Come on over.
Chair and Commission, I'll just note, it's not a requirement at all that we receive anything in writing. I was merely making the comment in the presentation that we had not received feedback prior
Right.
to the staff
Right.
report or this
Yeah,
meeting.
and-
Certainly, the notification that was sent was inviting you to come to this meeting and participate this way as well.
So did they all fall within the 500 feet of notification, or was something else done? Because from what I see of this layout of where the range is, I kind of thought, well, everything is under the, yeah. So that's why I was a little surprised that we've got audience, but that's good. We need to hear. Go ahead.
Sure, yeah.
Yes, Board. Sir, my name is Bill Dorgan.
Okay.
I've lived in the area for 20 years, and I was the chair of the association for probably 6, 7 years. We've dealt with this issue for many years. When we moved in, and prior to when we moved in, of course, there wasn't the development we have that surrounds the gun range at this time. At the time, they used it for shooting. It was the only place, from our understanding, that they had to shoot in indoors or outdoors. At one time, it was, and this is the first time we've heard it described as a training facility, a police training facility. And of course, we assume different things because of that in terms of the implications. It was always the gun range. And once they developed an inside range, the revolvers and the small calibers were used there, and they weren't used as much outside. They didn't need to. But what they did do is they developed, they allowed other municipal fire departments, or not, excuse me,
Police.
fire departments, police departments to come in and use it as well. They probably charged something, and there was quite a bit of use. They stopped doing that at some point, as we understand. And when we say use, for the last few years, it's really been down to a prescribed minimum. And that's been reported to us every month because they really, I think, given the mitigation as well, we had less noise in a sense, but still it was there. And a lot of people, we're talking about South Linwood, we're talking about south of Linwood and west of McKnight, and a lot of areas it covers. And we heard it, and heard it loud and clear. And families complain, particularly with young children, out on the bus, waiting for the bus to pick them up to go to school, and they were hearing the shotguns in the distance. Very disconcerting for young families. And of course, for folks that went ahead and worked during the day, they didn't have much to complain about because they weren't there. And it was during the week, and so on and so forth. We've had a very poor notice for the wide area that's affected by this, for this meeting and for the rush to judgment and for the decision to be made. There's a lot of people that are going to be disappointed. There's a number of people, officials in Maplewood City government that are aware and aren't very much supported. And we've talked to a couple of the county commissioners who said when we went and developed this lease for the city, for the police, it was for a gun range, and it was limited, and there were the developments we have now. The fact that they want to make it a training center leads us to believe they're not going to put this investment in there and then restrict it just to St. Paul Police. We are fear it'll go back to a municipal use or a metro use. We're really afraid of that. We can't understand how they could expect to make another mound system for their sewage and drive another well where everybody around that, except for a few south of Linwood, have to have a hookup with city sewer and city water. And when it's only 200 or 300 feet away, that's something you would think they'd do if they were going to do it at all. And that would be for minimums. But under the present circumstances, we're appalled. And I think it has to be looked at, and it affects, if you had a realtor here, and I knew a couple of realtors by name I could mention, but they would say for years they had to reduce the price of homes around there because of the gun range. And if you only live or sat there for a few days, you'd see why. We're afraid that even though they're down to what looks like just a few days a month, this isn't going to be just that. If they put that kind of a defense development in there, we all know that. The logic doesn't speak to what we see and what we hear and what we expect will happen.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
I'll sign in as I'm done. So there's just a couple of points that I'd like
Please
to
give
make.
your name, please.
Oh, my name is Sharon Warner. I live near Mark, who just spoke on Hillwood Drive. So we're right across the pond from the gun range, so we can see the flag when they fly it. So it's very, very close to us. And it was there when we moved in, for sure. It was in the mid-'90s. But you have to understand, their lease was originally for handguns, and now they're at semi-automatics. So that noise is much louder. It's much more prevalent, like it's just like a pounding sound. So it does get a lot louder. And so my second point, though, is but it's probably going to stay there. Like we've been fighting this for years. So, but to allow them to expand and to add doesn't seem right when our taxes are probably the highest in Maplewood. Like our taxes are just very, very high. Like if you want to reduce our taxes and then allow them to do that, maybe we would be a little bit more understanding. But you continue to raise our taxes and allow them to do that,
that doesn't seem fair. So that's my point. So I will sign in. Do you have any questions for me?
Nope, thank you.
Okay.
If I had the power, I'd lower my taxes too.
Well, you know,
We all have the same tax rate. There isn't a different tax rate for the city of Maplewood by area.
Maybe another question too for Elizabeth. Do we know, are there any other active gun ranges in the city of Maplewood? That we're aware of?
There are no other gun ranges.
So I guess I'm not surprised to find that they don't talk about this in our zoning code because it is not something that is
It's common.
common in our city.
Right.
So I'm not surprised this isn't in there. However, I would agree with a lot of the residents, this seems like a big loophole that there's just no discussion, and that it's just, well, it's public, it's acceptable, it's fine, because it's public, okay. That there's this really weird disconnect here between the use, the actual use of this space, and what the residents are experiencing around it, and their ability to actually do anything about it. I'm hearing, that's what I'm, I guess, hearing from a lot of people, is that it's this disconnect between, okay, our zoning code is just really, it's a gray spot, it's, I mean, just a black hole of a spot, I guess. There's nothing in there that really talks to this, other than that it's a public building, so we need a conditional use permit. But beyond that, there's nothing that talks about gun ranges in particular, nothing that talks about, you know, a facility of this nature, it sounds like.
I'd have to, look a little more to be sure, but I do know that we outline, like retail sales of firearms.
Yeah.
I don't know if we would, get into I know it doesn't say shooting range anywhere.
Yes.
Certainly, if this was proposed and it was like a different, situation where it's not a existing use that's been in operation there for a number of years, we would want to see it enclosed, but again, we don't have that authority to say that. We can't tell them how to build or what to do on the site. We can, with the conditional use permit, consider reasonable conditions on how they operate on the site. So with the conditional use permit, with the wetland mitigation plan, the city has a little more control over what's occurring there than we do now. We certainly don't otherwise control it, from a use or from a wetland protection standpoint currently. At the end of the day, again, I will just reiterate, we don't have a say in the operational or what's in their lease, and how that property is managed, really. We are processing this application as we would any other land use application. And in this case, yes, those are the boxes it checks in our zoning ordinance. I can't not make it check those boxes or apply or be applicable, but it is. And so that is the process that's been outlined for them. Again, if there are concerns about what's occurring there, those are things that should be brought to the county. They also represent the residents here.
Can I ask a hypothetical? So hypothetically, this does not go forward, hypothetically, okay? Sorry.
One second. The lady is waiting. Let's finish her up and then we can have our discussions because I've got more questions too. So if you could give us your name, please.
My name is Jean Schuster. I live in the quadrant up there. That's the upper far left quadrant, right? Our property's back up against the golf course, the old golf course.
Okay, so you are even north of Sterling Street?
Yes.
Okay.
We are on Deer Ridge, and so that feeds back into Sterling, so Sterling
Yeah.
kind of cuts our property, our
Okay.
association in half. So,
Okay.
and I'm the president of that association, so I've had a lot of opportunity to talk with residents of our association. We
Okay.
have two up there, actually. And after what Elizabeth just said, I don't know how much of your purview will be able to be effectuating any kind of response to what our complaints are, but it's good maybe that you're aware of them. I find it kind of odd that there was only a 500-foot, I mean, we're way beyond that, and we
That's right.
really hear it well.
Right.
And so I think we bought the property in 2015, and this was not disclosed. Would I have not bought the property? Probably not. I probably still would have bought the property. But when I remember going out that first day, and when you describe it as noise, there's noise and then there's noise. But when you hear gunfire and you don't know what it is, it's freaky. It's scary. And I can only imagine what little children feel like, especially in our climate today. Especially in our climate today. Now, when you guys, and by the way, thank you for your service. I appreciate all of you guys, what you do. But what I want to say, and I don't want to take your time up very much here, but when this was established, and it was way back in the 60s, that was all farmland and open. And there was a reason they chose that site. It was so people wouldn't be bothered by what was going on there. And you can see how dense now that residential area is. There's a lot of people that are affected by this that you will never hear from, but are being affected by it. And my question is, I mean, it seems like it's a wonderful facility. I'd love to see it a training area for a lot of different purposes. I'm sure that the police department could use it for training of many, many things. But maybe the gun range outside part of it maybe could be relocated to another part back in the country where it was originally supposed to be. And that's all I would like to say about that. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak regarding this subject before I close the hearing, and then we can have more discussions internally? Okay, go ahead.
I just want to speak to the naming that's on this PowerPoint slide as a training facility. I would argue that anytime we're out at the range and we're firing our guns, it is a training environment. We're having our officers shoot their firearms to get acclimated with them, to get proficient with them, and that's training. So that's why it's listed as a training facility. There's no broad intention to all of a sudden invite all the metro departments to this police range. A lot of agencies have their own gun ranges. They don't need to use ours. So I just want to make a note on that training facility wording of this, that every time we're shooting, it's training.
So as far as you know, other agencies within the metro area have not approached you and said, hey, clean this up, fix it up, and we'll come and use it and give you some monetary value in return?
No, that has not happened.
Okay, thank you.
Commander, could some of the residents spoke to the type of weapons that are used there. Is there a restriction on the weapons, and are automatic weapons restricted?
So we've never had automatic weapons there. We have rifles that many people would assume to be automatic weapons, but they do not fire in an automatic fashion. They're single-shot rifles, and then when you have 10, 12, 14 people on a range at a time firing multiple shots, it could sound like automatic fire just based on the number of officers that are firing at one time. But there are no automatic weapons being used there.
Thanks for that clarity.
Okay. Any other questions for her? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to close the public hearing. Seeing no one else wishes to say, we'll open it up internally. Tom, go ahead and ask a question.
My hypothetical was as if were to proceed or not proceed, there's no legal ramification, there's no legal recourse of city to stop this, to end the, to end what they're doing there. It's to end the training facility because it is it's county property, and the St. Paul city is leasing from the county. Maplewood cannot force this to end.
That's correct.
Other than
Effectively,
influencing it
yes.
somehow.
Correct.
Right.
We're working
But-
politically through it, but even if this were not, I'm just saying hypothetically not to pass, it's
Right.
not going to end what's happening here.
Correct.
Okay.
And our purview as a planning commission are to look at the two recommended actions and see are they meeting the requirements or not to pass it. All of the comments, I hear them, I really respect what you folks are saying. It's not as if it's going on deaf ears, but we as a planning commission have no purview over saying what that use would be by the city of St. Paul. I recommend that all of you folks connect with the commissioner of the county. I don't know who the commissioner is, so I'm sorry I can't give you a name, but my recommendation is that they are the ones who could influence this much more than the planning commission can. And all of these comments will be passed on to the city. City council will also get some input on it. But again, this is just my opinion, and Tom and all of us here feel essentially that this is not a decision that the planning commission gets to make. We only look at the zoning and the conditional use permit and land use. That is about all that the planning commission has purview over, so we can't make that change. As long as they abide by those regulations, then we are obligated to just move on those motions. Okay?
That is correct. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for anybody? Okay, I guess it's time to make a motion. Is there a motion?
Would you like me to put that up here? I can put it up.
Ellen, go ahead. Al,
A motion to approve a conditional use permit resolution for the city St. Paul Police Department training facility at 2621 Linwood Avenue East, subject to certain conditions of approval. And the B, motion to approve a design review resolution for constructing a
that's
training.
done. That's done.
Two separate-
That's
two
design
separate.
review, you gotta go to C.
Okay, yeah, all right. Motion to approve a wetland buffer variance resolution for a new training facility to be constructed at 2621 Linwood Avenue East.
Is there a second?
Second, Lou.
Second?
Will second. All those in favor of approving the motion, say aye. Aye. Is there a nay? No? No nays. The motion has passed. When is it going to the city council, Elizabeth?
The city review process, after tonight's meeting, this is scheduled to go to the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission on April 21st at 7 o'clock. And then the city council will review the project on May 12th at 7 o'clock.
Okay, so that's another opportunity if you folks want to be at the city council meeting, it'll be on May 12th. Okay? All right, so that ends the public hearing for today. I see no new business, no unfinished business. Anything from the commission members that wish to present any information or ask any questions of the city? None? Okay, staff presentations?
I do not have anything for you.
All right. No visitor presentations that have been signed up ahead of time. So I will adjourn the planning commission meeting at 7:57. We're done.